And so I leave you with this conclusion. It's time for you to put more pressure on the legal profession to defend our Constitution. There's not much commentary on why the vast majority of 800,000 lawyers in this country who are practicing law and who are officers of the court have not taken a strong stand against the impeachable offenses of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. There are exceptions. Those great civil liberties lawyers who are defense lawyers, law professors, Bruce being one of them, David Cole of Georgetown Law School, Jonathan Turley of George Washington University Law School, Michael Greco, the head of the American Bar Association for just 1 year, 2005-2006, sent Bush white papers. This is the American Bar Association, you know, it's pretty conservative. Sent Bush white papers accusing him of violating the Constitution. Like 800 signing statements, which Bush says he may not obey when the bill comes to him from Congress. He has issued more signing statements than all the presidents combined. And what he's really saying is, I'm going to sign this into law instead of veto it, but I'll decide whether I obey it, like the anti-torture law that McCain got through. He'll decide. He is the law. He is above the law because he is the law. Do we need Louis XIV? And I think all of us ought to put pressure on the legal profession. Lawyer jokes aside, the first defense outside of government against the rejection of due process, probable cause, and habeas corpus should come from the officers of the courts, the attorneys of America. With few exceptions, they have flunked, asleep at the switch, or loaded with excuses. The exceptions I just pointed out of the handful of courageous lawyers who stood tall to defend the Constitution. Unfortunately, the courage of Michael Greco and his colleagues have not been contagious with these hundreds of thousands of lawyers around the country, or the 50 state bar associations who might have taken some action or position to stand after the ABA, the American Bar Association, stood tall in 2005-2006. I did a little research and called up some lawyers. This was quite enjoyable. I said to them, scores of former generals, high military officers, retired intelligence officials, and diplomats have openly criticized the intransigence, incompetence, and harm to the U.S. national security from this war in Iraq. That's true. No other war has been openly opposed by retired generals, diplomats, national security officials, right up to the cabinet level under both parties. I think one reason is they knew the U.S. Army was against the war in the Pentagon for logistical and tactical reasons up to the 4-star general level, but they were muzzled. We didn't listen to them. These leaders include the national security advisors to Bush's father, Brent Scowcroft, the anti-terrorism advisor to George W. Bush, Richard Clark, and many others who served in high government office. So then I asked the lawyers, call them up. I call up a real estate lawyer. And I say this to them. Why aren't you speaking up? You're an officer of the court. Real estate attorney with a sterling civil liberties background says, quote, I'm just too busy, end quote. Numerous retired lawyers of considerable accomplishment simply told me, they are, after all, retired. As if you're lobotomized from any activity once you retire. Mid-career business attorneys said to me, they have too many clients who might object. Too much wheeling and dealing to uphold the rule of law in Washington, D.C., I guess. We give lawyers the privilege of monopolizing access to the courts. That privilege comes with the responsibility to defend the public interest, especially in such dire times. Public interest lawyers say it is not within their declared mission. They are, after all, environmental lawyers, or poverty lawyers, or consumer lawyers, or they work for law reform, like keeping the doors open to people who are wrongfully injured and want access under the tort laws, doors that are being closed on us by the insurance company and the tort fees as lobby. Quote, too controversial, end quote, and quote, I'm not up to it, end quote, announced a prominent trial lawyer to me. Oh, too controversial. Quote, I wouldn't know where to start, and I just need my leisure time, end quote, replied a highly specialized estate and trust attorney. And so it goes. They are too preoccupied, too many deals in the works, too controversial, too retired. I beg to differ. It is up to the lawyers of America, not just the lawyers of Pakistan, to stand for law and order, constitutional law and order. You'll remember the pictures of the Pakistani lawyers rallying, marching, being hosed down by police, beaten, in prison, all in their three-piece suits. Amazing picture. We're not even asking the lawyers in the United States to take to the streets. It is up to the lawyers to rally for the Republic. This is deep patriotism. For without upholding our Constitution and the laws of the land, what will become of our country? What will our children and their grandchildren inherit? A bankrupt government that contracts out more and more of its core functions to staggeringly expensive giant companies seeking limitless profits while they finance and corrupt politicians to turn their back on the people's needs? Lawyers are supposed to know how to apply law to raw power. That's what they're supposed to be good at. And George W. Bush is raw power, not legal power. Lawyers know how to use the courts. They know how to lobby. There are hundreds or thousands of attorneys in each congressional district. They can cut through the arcane camouflage of legalese. They know when the laws are being violated and what the remedies are for the violators. They know how to draft legislation. They have contacts and money and are not supposed to be frightened of conflict. The super lawyers invariably get their calls returned. Where are the lawyers of America? Where are the stand-up lawyers of America? All you non-lawyers, as you're called, should ask lawyers whom you know that question. Every society that has declined into raw power and the destruction of due process of law has been full of people who thought it couldn't happen there. Well, don't bet. And why should you wait to be proven wrong? I must again emphasize how important it is to carry these agendas across the land, and we're going to campaign in 50 states, unlike the major candidates who do red state, blue state. From Hawaii to Maine, Alaska to Florida. There's no way we can do this without hundreds of thousands of people who take a little time out to volunteer, to help get us on the ballot, to have discussion sessions in living rooms, to go over the record of the politicians, and to look at the future of our country and ask, who is going to brighten that future? If it's not them, who? The Fortune 500? The indentured politicians in Washington? It's us.